Yeah, no bullshit on this one. As you can tell by the vibe of this video, it's going to be the most serious I've ever been in any video or any time I'm online, unless the future changes this. A while ago, a friend of mine, Ultimate Joker, made a video about beauty standards for women in video games. While he was in the process of making said video, he reached out to me privately about the potential of me joining in. I couldn't help but jump at the idea and decide to make my own little feature in his video. The video goes out, it's genuine fun to be a part of, and I'm not really thinking that much of it afterwards. But of course, it's never really this simple, so another individual during this point had made multiple response videos towards Joker about his Spider-Man videos. And this was after the debacle between myself, Joker, and Crispy Crib. But it was then that a guy named TheGamingRift felt the need to make not one, not two, but 5 response videos to Joker now. Funny enough, this guy named TheGamingRift somehow makes it seem like Joker is obsessed with Rift, despite the fact that Joker never once made an exclusive video dedicated to responding to Rift. It was nothing more than a light jabful mention in a video, but you can't say Rift didn't start it here. It does not take a genius to recognize that the difference really scales here. Making this video is overall a lose-lose-lose situation for me. The first loss is being in a position like this in the first place, being caught in a crossfire of association. The second and probably worst loss is the fact that Rift has a way bigger audience and reach than I do, therefore by nature, this response will not get nearly as many views as his video will, and he'll successfully have the louder voice. The third loss is that throughout this response I'll likely be revealing small tiny personal few things about myself that I'd rather not, but this one may not even be a big deal. I want to start off by getting to the point and making my overall stance very clear about who I'm talking about. I really hope you're watching all the way to the end, Rift, because I know how terminally online you are, and because this is indeed directed towards you. Initially, I knew nothing of TheGamingRift. I only came to find out about him by proxy of the Crispy debacle that came and went. And at this point, I had no opinion on the dude. When I made my first response to Crispy, he seemed a little hurt that I skipped over his part mentioned in that video. Fast forward to now, I must say, go to hell. Like, actually, you're hands down the biggest piece of shit I've ever had the displeasure of talking about. Now, Katana's fans, you're probably not saying, was whatever he did to you that bad to where you're openly hating him and making a video expressing that hatred towards him? And to that I say, yeah, it was that bad. When I found out Rift actually felt a need to make a response on the video Joker did featuring me, I figured he would hinge really hard on the idea that you just shouldn't be allowed to talk about female attractiveness in games to begin with, and how it's somehow really disrespectful to the IRL face models, despite the fact that they've been downgraded in-game versus how they look IRL. And lo and behold, I was not wrong. Rift's video is also pretty much a checklist of insults he can get out of the way while hinging on 3 primary points, 2 of which I never even argued against. 1, appearance isn't as big of a deal for a character. 2, what most people are attracted to are subjective, something I literally said. And 3, PS5 MJ is just fine. This part is the most important thing to him. When it comes to my part in Joker's video specifically, Rift throughout was upset because I wasn't objective enough in that video. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I feel like I can be pretty reasonable on multiple sides of a spectrum. However, like I said then, I'm not afraid to point out how I lean more to one side of an argument. People tend to ignore me saying this, so I'm gonna say it again. I play reasonable to all sides of an argument that I can understand as to not misrepresent those sides, while also solidifying the side that I lean on. And if that's not good enough for you, too bad. It's the way I approach these subjects and always will. Rift made it seem as if I and Joker were supposed to be completely unbiased, which I know I sure as hell wasn't trying to be. There's a difference here. Even Joker said my points were subjective enough. I deadass defended the act of making characters look below average when I said it's not all bad to do for original characters, or in a way that's not distracting for an overall negative. But Rift completely disregards that because I brought up Mary Jane in Spider-Man 2, and that was the only thing he heard from me in that sentence. Rift suffers really hard from what I call easily offended Twitter user syndrome, where just about anything you say will be spun around in the worst way possible to render your intents ill, thus proceed to speedrun their way into calling you some sort of bigot. Perfect example of this is how I playfully refer to MK1 Tanya as fuckable to Melina, leaning into the fact that Tanya and Melina are a hidden couple. Pretty harmless, yet Rift manages to use his Twitter logic to label me as some sort of guy who sees women as some sort of sex object with no feelings, I guess. Suffice to say, he did pretty much the same thing to Joker throughout this. Joker was talking about angry white women's behavior and comparing it to as ugly as certain in-game model faces, and that was enough for Rift to turn it into "you're misogynist, bro." It's actually kind of poetic because this group of women that Joker was talking about are easily offended by everything and twist everything into "you're racist" or misogynistic. TheGamingRift seems to have a lot in common with angry white women. That's kind of funny. Anyway, back to the Tanlina thing. This is his ammunition to claim that I just have no respect towards women whatsoever. If you unironically think that I'm some individual who sees women as nothing but fuck toys in the day-to-day basis, and your receipt is a harmless comment on a YT video, said comment being obviously something that's not meant to be taken that seriously, yeah, that says way more about you than it does me. I've said it before, I'll say it again. We do not need sex appeal in our games like that. You can go to other places if you want that. At best, it's a nice cherry on top of solid gameplay, and at worst, it's gonna cause your game to be as irrelevant as this series. I also defended and made the point that people are gonna be attracted to whatever, and that's fine so long as it's not a minor or an animal or something really fucked like that. But Rift didn't care about that because he was more hyper-focused on my mention of Mary Jane. Because I said she was downgraded from the previous game, and he insisted that she wasn't, and the only thing that changed were a few small features. What Rift did that actually triggered the shit out of me was him calling me racist with no trace of irony whatsoever. This man actually insists that I'm a racist towards black women. His proof? Well, I made an admittedly awkward phrasing of one sentence despite everything else I said. This is probably the only thing in Joker's video I wish I could change, as it gave Gaming Grifter here the perfect gaslighting ammunition to shoot me with. You get the point. However, I want to showcase another point of black characters who may not fit into this category of what the set bar is for beauty standards of this race.
Whoa. Did you just refer to black women as a race? I'll just let that comment sink in.
At first, I really thought he was joking, getting a gotcha out of me and pointing out the weird phrasing of that sentence, which I'll admit could have been worded better. But he really brought it up and tried to paint me as if I somehow need to make a distinction between a white woman and a black woman, or I'm segregating black women somehow. Listen, I made a minor mistake. I phrased my sentence poorly, and if you're black and offended, I do apologize. It was not my intent to come off a certain negative way with that statement, and if it bothered you in any way, shape, or form, I do apologize. As someone who's black, I don't see how this is racist towards black women, but if you're bugged by the word race in that instance, again, I'm sorry. No, I was not trying to segregate black women or isolate them from other races or whatever the fuck Gaming Grift was trying to make it seem. If you're not black and you insist this was intentionally racist, I kindly insist that you go fuck yourself. Black people, white people, Koreans, Latinos, they're all people, but they are all indeed different races. And it's not racist in itself to point that out. Race is something to be proud of. Coming from different backgrounds, different culture, religions, etc. If anything, it's kind of fucked up not to acknowledge these things. This is what we call diversity, something that should be embraced wholeheartedly. But in Rift's mind, you have to have the mindset of the only way you can't be racist is to not see color, which isn't true. It's not racist to acknowledge race. You can indeed look at someone for their race and it not be a bad thing. It's bad if you hate someone for their race. It's bad if you discriminate towards someone for their race. It's bad if you genuinely think negatively towards an individual or a group of people because of their race, which is not what I, or Joker for that matter, did. I really have a white man who 100% believes that I, someone who is black, am racist towards my own race just because of one sentence that didn't even mean anything in a negative way. Last time, no, I don't see red when I see a black man or woman or any given race, and no, I was not referring to black women as a race in that way. It sucks that I really have to sit here and say that all because of a gaslighting, insufferable, entitled, egotistic, obnoxious, self-absorbed, white-knighting, wannabe, easily offended, hypersensitive, attention-seeking, crybaby son of a bitch like Rift. I can handle a lot of shit being thrown my way, but what I'm not gonna let slide is an asshole blatantly lying on my name, especially especially such a slanderous and heinous lie, Rift is very eager to throw these accusations around with little to no real proof. You can say one thing innocently, and Rift will try his damnedest to spin it around as the worst thing possible in order to render you as some sort of bigot. It's actually disgusting behavior. I don't know you well, Rift, nor do I wanna, but given how you've thrown this around in the fashion that you have, I can definitely see you being that guy in someone's friend group who can never be joked around with and takes things way too seriously. Gets offended on someone else's behalf when the person in question wasn't even offended, and if the girl in his friend group makes a suggestive, playful comment, he'll likely cover his ears freaking out over it because he seethes whenever there's any female sexualization around him. When it comes to black women specifically playing a part in this, it's more of a nuanced topic if you ask me. Not just because of their features, but...
Oh, fucking hell. Why do they have to zoom in on the fucking ass and tits constantly in these fucking videos? Like, this just makes me so sad. Like, why am I doing this?
God forbid you say something he doesn't like about Spider-Man, because he's most likely gonna just burn the bridge with you completely over it, but not before ranting to you for an hour about how you're wrong for what you said. Ironically, like I said before, there's parts where Rift deadass only acknowledges certain points I make and responds if they relate directly to Spider-Man 2, and disregards everything else I say. Look, obviously having hot women be hot is a mega plus, having ugly women is kinda not. However, I don't think it's a problem when doing it for an original character or doing it in a certain way. For instance, if a game came out with a large number of important characters, many looking attractive and some others looking below average, but all of these are original characters, would this really be a bad thing if it's truly balanced across the roster? Would this true form of diversity be bad? I think making a character ugly can really be a problem in select instances. One where whoever's in charge is doing it so hard on purpose that it can feel too intentional to the point where it's distracting or taking away from the main point of a plot. And then the other where you're changing a previously established character who had high looks or above average looks and reducing them on purpose for whatever reason.
I love the fucking irony of using those two screenshots for MJ, because literally the only differences are the hair and the eyes. That's it. The rest of the face is literally the same. I love when people use those specific images because they just prove the opposite.
Attraction in the black community, and hell, what anyone's attracted to for that matter, varies. Here's another example of this. Uncharted. Let's take out the whole wokeism thing from this for a bit and just talk about what Naughty Dog was doing with their last entry. Their first black female character would be Nadine Ross, a badass black lady who actually kicks the shit out of both Nathan Drake and his brother Sam. See, the reason I can buy this is because it makes sense that Nadine's got a higher level of training than Nathan given the established context of the previous games. Nathan never really had a study of martial arts like that. He was just good at punching shit and he learned it from an old man. Chloe, however, had a style to her moves, same thing for Nadine. I can believe this because it's fairly evident and reasonable and approached to well, unlike...
So let me get this straight. You think it's perfectly okay for a female fighter who is established to be the better fighter to kick the shit out of the established protagonist who is beloved? But you don't think it's okay for the same thing to happen in Spider-Man 2, when Kraven, who is established to be by far the better fighter, kicks the shit out of the established hero?
Brody seems really tight right now over his precious Spider-Man 2 that shall not be slandered, but it gets even better.
Like, there are two theories I have here. Number one, you simp for black women.
Oh, well, that's rich, because according to you, I'm racist towards black women, so which one is it?
Or number two, you're racist towards Russian men.
Dude, this is actually really gross and cringe. Why the fuck are you bringing in the fact that he's Russian here? I literally said take the wokeism out of it.
In just a short amount of time, I'm genuinely convinced that he's just as racist as Joker, if not more so. Because at the very least, Joker doesn't try to hide the fact that he's bigoted or whatever. This guy's like, I'm unbiased, I'm unprejudiced, all this other stuff, but black women are a separate ways to right women, I'll have you know.
I don't think GamingRift even knows what the hell racism is. If I were magically racist towards black women, as you say I am eagerly, the last thing I'd ever do is take part in a video that's dedicated towards black women in games.
Walking down the street in Chicago and white dudes come up to him and say, hey man, aren't you that faggot nigger from Empire? A fuck? Does that sound like how white people talk? I know white people. They don't talk like that. Are you that faggot nigga from Empire? They would never say that. It sounds like something that I would say. If you're racist and homophobic, you're not even gonna know who this nigga is. You can't watch Empire.
I want the few people who watch this to be completely aware that yes, I 1,000,000% hate this man, and this is exactly why. All of this because I was giving his favorite video game a level of shit. Thus, he felt the need to use ultra mental gymnastics and logic leaps to call me racist again. Over Spider-Man 2, by the way. I don't even care about the games themselves at this point. I'm talking about what a piece of shit Rift is for this. So Rift gets off to slandering people on an actual harmful level over disagreeing with him over a video game. And he's not just doing this to me. Like I said, he's been doing this relentlessly to Joker. And if I really went in depth on it, this would be way longer than it needs to be. It didn't take much for him to go low as hell when talking about me and Poison the Well, so imagine how much worse Joker and whoever else dared to talk shit about Spider-Man 2 got flack from Rift. Shit talking and insults is one thing, but actual slander towards people for having a different view than yours is lower than my simple words can express. Lower than what I say or what I've heard Joker say. No matter how aggro one comes off, I have way more respect for Joker, Crispy, and a lot of others I've disagreed with over my short time here. Way more respect than I could ever find for Rift. Because 1, they knew when and how to fucking stop, and 2, aren't doing what you do. Rift, you are following this man around obsessively.
And he even dropped the fucking PS4 review, which looks like we know what next video is gonna be.
The worst part about this is that Rift can easily get away with this due to having his toddler audience who praise and agree with him nonstop because he says things they like to hear about Spider-Man. This is why he can't really lose. But innocent people like myself or Joker will, because he can easily gaslight the fuck out of you and his audience will eat it all up. Seriously, Rift, fuck you, and people who think like you or go to the lengths you do. You act like you're on a high horse when in reality you're worse than the people you pretend to be better than because you're too hyper-focused on creating a fucked up narrative to add on to your laundry list of insults you'll throw at one in order to paint them as horribly as possible. You're no better than anyone, Riff. Your pussy gets hurt when someone talks bad about your favorite video game. You have no right or ability to tell anyone to touch grass when this is you. Joker even said it to me himself. He's so ass mad over the things that Joker says that he feels a dire need to attack me by association. The fact that Joker can point this out says way more about you than anything about him, Rift. Knowing how Rift is, he's probably going to see this and he's probably going to respond with the following on this list. I wonder how right I'm going to be. Or he avoids this on purpose because he's watched the video ahead of time and he's avoided saying anything that sounds like this. Like I said, it's really annoying how this is all over Spider-Man. This video wouldn't even really exist had my name not been lied upon to such a filthy degree. And that is indeed why I'm tight and actually kind of pissed. I owe Joker himself an apology because I low-key glossed over it when he came to me about it, not realizing that it was this bad for him. I didn't think the bullshit coming out of Rift's mouth was really that bad, but it's really worse. The last thing anyone needs is a lie or a rumor or something of that sort spread about them, not just me. So if you ever see someone going around talking about, oh hey, I heard that Katana's fans guy or Ultimate Joker or anyone for that matter is a racist or a homophobe or a misogynist or blah blah blah, make sure you get them to send a little receipt to you for it, and make sure said receipt isn't something big from little to nothing and isn't some he said, she said shit. As far as my name and Joker's name go, refer to this video. I can't speak too much for Joker as I've said before, but as far as I'm concerned, Joker never actually said something to attack individuals for their race or background alone. Did he perpetuate stereotypes? Sure. Is that okay? Not entirely. I don't endorse it. However, is it racist? No. And I don't think Gaming Grifter could ever understand that or the difference between questionable at worst statements, stereotypes, and actual racism itself.
I mean, I kind of see where you're coming from, but at the end of the day, somebody could easily argue that it is not edgy, it is just racist if you were to try to fucking compare black people and apes.
Okay.
It's very subjective, so I can't even just sit here and it is subjective.
Okay.
What? Wait, it's not subjective? You're telling me right
What's
now
not
that
subjective?
edgy
You can
humor is not
argue
subjective?
that you can argue that edgy humor is racist. That's true, but there's a difference between like edgy humor and just being racist, right? Do you not understand the distinction at all, or?